Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our weekly show on Africa Sports Consultancy. And as always, we look to bring you the best in terms of content. And tonight we are joined by one of the best in the business, Mr. Mike Randall. Mike, how are you doing this evening?
Doing well, thank you, man. And you? You're doing well?
No, I'm good, Mike. As long as I have you here, then I'm in a very good mood.
Okay, same here, man. Yeah.
Fantastic. So, Mike, just to give you a bit of background, Africa Sports Consultancy, we're looking to empower athletes in Africa across all sporting codes. And when I say all sporting codes, we trying to touch everything as much as we can. And I guess that's why we have you here as a baseball guru. But before we jump into all of that, Mike, so you and sport, what is your relationship been with sport?
Oh, well, growing up, I think I ran wherever I went. I just ran. Wherever I was going, I just ran and ran and ran. So I always got moving around and things like that. I remember my mother sending me to the shop and I used to run to the shop. I never walked. And going in school, playing all those different sports at school and things like this. And of course, I found out that I could run pretty fast and move pretty well and so on. But I became a footballer, a soccer player at a very early age. I started to play soccer when I was 8 years old and developed very quickly. And that was the start, of it. And, you play the normal school sports, but soccer was my love. I was on the field probably every day of the year, kicking balls and catching balls and whatever it is. I never got involved in baseball at all as a young man. And only later on, But that was the start of me. Soccer was my life. And eventually I ended up having a 3-year period playing professional soccer as well.
So, Mike, professional soccer, that jumps out at me. Who did you play for?
I played for Hellenic. There were 2 professional clubs at that time in Cape Town. The one was Cape Town City, based in Observatory at Hartleyvale, and the other one was the continental footballers, the ones with all the football touches, soft feet and so forth and so on. And I was signed by them and I spent 3 years with them. And they were based in Greenpoint.
Oh, fantastic. And what position did you play?
I played on the right wing. My number was number 7. I played on the right wing most of the time. They moved me to the left wing every now and again. And I spent some time in the middle. But I was too short, man. I couldn't jump those giants and center off and things like that. But I had a lot of pace and I had good feet. So I played on the wing almost all my life. Right wing.
Fantastic. I can imagine how much pace you had. Now, Mike, you've landed up in baseball. How has that happened? Professional footballer gone to baseball.
Man, it is absolutely insane. Really, it's insane. In this respect, I never played as a young guy at all, as a junior sportsman. I never played baseball. But a friend of mine who was at school with me, he played. And he was very good. He played for South Africa at a very young age. Baseball's not a very big sport. And he kept saying to me, Mike, come and play. Mike, come and play. Mike, come and play. And, I always soccer, off season, that we were training and that type of thing through the off season. And then January we started and we played. So it was kind of your life and your life's dream and so on. And then when I stopped playing professional sport, eventually he said to me, no, you finished playing now, although I was playing local sport. And then he said, come, you can run and throw and catch balls, man. Come and play with me. And that's how I started to play. But I was already an adult, if you know what I mean. So that was the very, very start of it. And I could run and throw, I found out. I can't say I was a very good hitter, probably with the delay in me starting the sport and so forth, but I had good glove work and I could run and I could throw hard. And within 2 years, I made the provincial side. So that's where the start was.
Professional football player, gone professional baseball player, and you've sort of jumped on at a later stage in your life. And how are those challenges? Because obviously you haven't had the background that almost everyone else has had playing.
No, not at all. But let me just correct that. Sorry, Gotti, in that it wasn't a professional baseball, it was local baseball. Yeah, I played for a club. And as I say, within a very short period of time, because I could run and throw, my glove work was pretty good. So defensively, I was good. And of course, offensively, my strength was my speed and running, And I just played. I played for fun. I was with a friend of mine, and he was pretty good, and I just paid attention to what was going on. And you know, when you're playing sport and you're having reasonable success, it sort of motivates you. So you just keep going, you know. And then a little bit later on, man, I did some soccer coaching levels. So I was probably destined in a way to be a teacher or stroke coach or whatever it is. And then something about this game of baseball, as I developed, I got interested in the body and the movement and the throwing action and swinging a bat and whatever it is. And then I started to coach at junior level. And then, of course, I followed courses. And the course that we followed at the time in South Africa was based on the Australian model. And the more and more I studied the game, the more and more I became interested. And then I became a junior provincial coach, and then I became a senior provincial coach. And eventually I became a national coach very quickly. So that's where the start was.
Wow, what a story. And Mike, you've gone so quickly from just club baseball. And to be entirely honest with you, I didn't know very much about baseball here in Africa until I met you. And I can imagine that's been your experience also, coming up from the ranks. And it's not a very popular sport, is it, at the moment in Africa?
Yeah, very small sport. But it's the movement, man, and the speed of the game and that type of thing. You know, people throwing a ball or whatever it is, you know, it's small here. And of course, you watch games on television, and you're fascinated by how a human being can throw a ball that hard and people can hit a ball that far. So I became more and more involved in this, and as I say, then interacting with international teams and traveling overseas. That was mind-boggling because I coached one of the junior national teams as well. And then, of course, I was promoted to the senior national team as well. And life just went on, and I wanted to learn more and more and more. And I just became involved. And then, well, we can go on now. This is a long story, but I can tell you a little bit further as we go along. But that's how my sort of was local. And then I started to coach our national teams playing in junior tournaments overseas in World Cups, and also the seniors playing in World Cups overseas and so on.
Wow. Mike, what haven't you done in the world of baseball? It sounds like you've ticked it all off. You've gone club, you've gone provincial, you've gone international, and you mentioned there your travels to the United States. And I see you've got your MLB cap on. Fantastic. Yeah. Great if you can sign one for me and I can have a memento. Mike, now tell me about your travels. Obviously, you're going from Africa, where baseball, like you said, is a minority sport, and you're thrown straight into the deep end in the US, where baseball is the main gig.
Yeah. Well, again, I think it's the way I'm wired. I think it's probably because my mom, my mom was a school teacher, but we had 6 kids and that type of thing. My dad was an artisan and so on. So life was tough. I mean, we never had much money. We were reasonably poor and whatever it is. I was just running around on the field all the time and playing games. But getting involved with the national team, what really changed my life drastically was wanting to develop and learn more about the game so that I could teach other people. And I was in Paris way back in 1994. We were playing a World Cup against France, and we lost 2-1 in this World Cup qualifier. And I came home, and my wife said to me, "How did it go?" I said, "Oh, okay." I sort of just mumbled, And she looked at me and she said, "Well, what do you mean?" So I said, "No, well, I'm not happy. I'm really not happy." And she said, "Well, why not?" So I said, "Well, I don't think I know enough." And she said, "But you're a national coach." I said, "Yes, but I'd followed all the Australian models. I'd passed all the courses. And then I started to teach the courses. I started to run them for South African baseball, but I still felt I lacked knowledge to be able to consider myself a qualified coach. It's just me. And then I found out there was a course that I could attend in the United States. And it was run by the United States Amateur Federation. I made inquiries, and I found that I could go over. But there was no money. So I had to take a loan on my bond. And my wife and I paid for it. And I went overseas for 2 weeks. And I attended the course and passed that course. And I think that changed my life because I didn't know where I was going with this game because it's such a minor sport here. And I came back with this extra knowledge and so forth, and I tried to implement it and so forth and so on, not knowing that I am now coaching national teams and things like that and running courses and whatever. 5 years after I went to this course, the Kansas City Royals, a professional club from the US, came out here. And they came to Cape Town. They worked for me for 2 days. And after the second day, they said to me, would you come in and would you like to have a beer with us? So I went into the hotel and I sat down and they said, hey, Mike, we got an offer for you. Just like that. And I said, what? They said, we'd like to sign you up as a scout. So I looked, my mouth fell open and I said, well, what do you mean? So they said, well, we like what you know and we'd like you to work with us. I was gobsmacked. I really, I was stunned. I didn't know what to do. And, obviously excited, but I didn't even know what scouting was really about. You know what I mean? I had an idea, you scout kids and whatever, players, whatever. Anyway, they said to me, what are you doing tonight? And I said, well, I'm going home now to my wife. I'll probably shower and whatever. They said, give it a call and we'd like to take you out for dinner on that night. And we then went out to dinner. And when we sat in the restaurant at the waterfront, these two guys, the one guy was the assistant GM of the Kansas City Royals, one of the top coaches, they sat me down and they said to morning, my wife, did Mike tell you about our offer? She said, yes. And we were quite excited. And they said, oh, we've got another offer. Now, this was July 99. And they said to me, we'd like to take you over to the States in September. And that's where everything changed. They took me to the, what they call instructional league, where all their best athletes and best coaches are. And they took me over for there just over 3 weeks. And they did a unique thing. They wanted me to scout for them, but they introduced me as a coach to their staff. And they put me out on the field with their staff from day one. And there I was on the field learning with these coaches how to play this game of baseball. And that's where it started. So I scouted for them for a number of years. Of course, they had to teach me how to scout and whatever and understand what scouting is about. And they flew me over to the US from 99 until almost 2012, every year, sometimes twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year. And I got to work with professional players at the highest level, Hall of Fame people and things like this, who are humble. And I mean, they're just like anybody else. They got arms and legs and eyes and ears and whatever, but they have so much knowledge and they were so happy to share what they knew with me. And that's what changed my life. Really, that's what changed it.
Mike, absolutely phenomenal. I'm humbled by your story and I could listen to you all day. I really could. And how you've gone and the sacrifices you've gone on and made. Now, what I want to really jump into here, Mike, is you've come back from the US with all of these skills and you've brought them back to Africa. You've not taken your skills abroad and left them there, but you've brought them back to Africa and you've done some work here in Africa. You've done work in South Africa and I'm sure you've traveled around Africa as a scout.
Yes. Can
you tell us a bit more about that, how you've developed athletes in Africa around baseball?
Now, good. I will do that. Can I just jump into some little things? Another strange thing happened, man. In 1999, the Royals signed me up, right? And they take me over and they teach me now at professional level. It's scary because these people run and throw and hit. I get goosepimples when I think back and watch these athletes and these big league players play like they do. But a year after the Royals signed me up, Major League Baseball, who run the whole of the American sport, they approached me to coach for them in South Africa. So there was a huge discussion, whatever it is. Anyway, they contracted me then to run a program for them in South Africa. And I traveled through, jeepers, the whole of South Africa. I went to places that most people don't even know. I went to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of schools to educate teachers. We had a program that they called the Pitch, Hit and Run program. And I went to work with these young kids and so forth in primary schools, and then we tried to get it into high schools as well. And then I asked them to change tack because I needed to teach the teachers now how to teach this game when I'm gone. So I traveled all over the place. I was away for 2 weeks in a month for about 11 months of the year. And I went to places, as I say, that I never even knew existed in South Africa either. But that was a wonderful, and it's still, you talk about humbling experience, that is it. And that started me to really feel how much it meant to me to help young children that are good athletes. And we have thousands upon thousands of them. So I worked for MLB for close on 21 years doing this program. And of course, running coaching programs and running athletic programs. And then MLB also took me over to Italy to the academy for about 12 years. And there I also got to work with a lot of international coaches and international players and so forth. And in between, the Royals also sent me over to the academy in the Dominican Republic, in the Caribbean. And, that's an island, as you know, it's shared by Haiti. And that was a wonderful experience as well, because I think possibly 1/3 of the players in the US come from that little island. So, all this knowledge is now being gained and sort of internalized. And then to share it with the young kids in South Africa, that was really, really amazing for me.
Mike, the impact that you've had, you've said you've gone to places that you didn't even know existed, and you're going finding raw talent. And how much talent is there?
Well, huge. I can't even describe it to anybody to really realize. I remember coming home and taking a map out and telling people I was here, and I think they got bored. They weren't really interested to hear where I went. But remote places, remote towns, sometimes only 1,000 people in the area. But I mean, they were little kids, and they all so attentive and wanting to grow. But as most of you being an athlete as well, it's so difficult to develop an athlete unless there's constant education and the constant growth and the constant information and the constant training to be able to grow it. And of course, the towns and villages that I was going to, they were far apart. So to get them to actually play more, it was a huge challenge, but we got a huge amount of numbers going. But of course, to grow that numbers as the kids get older, they need some incentive. And that's where the big challenge came, making national teams, playing in tournaments, things like that, getting, recognized and so on. So that was a little disappointing, but I was able to work with a lot of athletes, and I still believe we have tons and tons of them here.
And you say that, Mike, you struggled for incentive. So as a young boy, as a young girl watching this right now, what is there scope to play baseball professionally? Is there scope to play baseball here in South Africa and to look beyond?
Yeah. Well, again, it is a difficult one to say. When an organization is run, there's a lot of challenges. It requires quite a bit of money and things like that to be able to get people to move from A to B and that type of thing and so on. And then, of course, the constant playing of the game, which, of course, grows the game, gets numbers. And when you have numbers, then obviously the whole development and scouting issue becomes a real thing, because now you've got a lot of people to choose from. And, of course, you've got the incentive, people wanting to make those teams and hire teams and things like that. And, during the period that I was a scout, I signed guys to go up to play for the Kansas City Royals and so on. And, of course, working for Major League Baseball, we also ran a lot of coach academies and things like that, and also player academies to try and get people recognized to go and play overseas. But it's extremely tough because, when you get signed up here in South Africa or in Africa, and when you go and play in the US, everybody runs and hits and throws. So it becomes a daunting task, and it's quite scary to a young person. You're away from home, and now who do you lean on? Everybody around you is your challenge, and they all run and hit and throw. So it becomes very much of a mental exercise, trying to adjust in another country to play this game that we are less advanced at. So yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy at all.
Yeah, you say that. We had a young lady on the show a couple of weeks ago, and she spoke of the same thing, but in a context of tennis, where she's gone over to the States and it's different. It's a different sort of challenge. And she spoke about that lonesomeness as well, which definitely brings a challenge. And I can only imagine, but I'm fascinated by what you do, Mike, as a scout. And as a scout, what do you look for in the players?
Well, firstly, from a baseball perspective, we have what we call 5 tools that we measure guys on. And the big one is running and running speed. So there's a set distance that we run the athlete to see how fast they run. And of course, these times are compared against times in the US and whatever it is in other countries and so on. Then once you look at the running speed, then you look at arm strength. So you're looking at velocity. So a velocity gain is the radar gun, and you check to see, and then you will have a look at can they bat? Can they swing a bat? Hand and eye coordination. And once they can swing a bat and make contact, what's their power like? Have they got extra additional power? And then, of course, the last thing is, of course, the fielding. What's their glove work like? What's their movement like? Can they run? Can they cover ground? Can they catch balls? Can they field balls? And so forth. And it's challenging because, the balls are hit so hard. You have got little time to react and respond, cross over your feet and all that type of thing, and run and throw and things like that. And then, of course, the last thing, the real big challenge, is the profiling of the individual about, do you really think they will make it? Will they grow? Are they coachable? What's their background? What's their toughness? And, my experience as an athlete or as a sports person, and I discovered in doing research and talking to a lot of people over years and years and years, is that there are more slow developers than the quick stars like that, And I had to learn that at a very early age as a scout, that you can't be overexcited just then and there. You've got to measure these athletes that you're recommending to be scouted, because you might make a mistake, because the person that you see, it might not be long lasting, and it might just be a short thing, in their life and so on. So you've got to do that, and over a period of time, once they've been exposed to a higher level coaching, hopefully the development will grow. The development in the athlete will grow. And then, of course, when they play against better athletes, how do they react? How do they respond? And are they successful? Because baseball is very much like most sports. It's about averages. And are the averages high? So it's extremely daunting.
Well, yeah, that is a lot. And one thing I really want to unpack on is the attributes that you said you look for in an athlete. And I know we don't have enough time to dive into all of that, Mike, as yet. But what I just want to do now is to give everyone an opportunity to post a few questions. If there's something you've heard from Mike or something interesting about Mike that you'd like to find out, please drop your comments in the chat, and then I'll pick them up from there and ask Mike. So Mike, while everyone types up that question, their questions, I have one for you. And it's a little rumor I've heard. I just need to make sure if it's true or not.
Yes.
I am told that you helped Jonty Rhodes become one of the best fielders in the world. How true is that?
No, it's not. It's not true. The story is this, just very briefly. Look, I got contacted by a coach by the name of Bob Woolmer, the late Bob Woolmer, that most people will know. And out of the blue, I mean, I hadn't been with the Royals yet. I hadn't been with, I've been with South Africa, yes, but I hadn't been with the Royals or Major League Baseball. But he phones me up and he says to me, look, I heard you're a fielding guy and you know a lot about fielding, whatever. I'd like you to work with us. And so I said, yeah. So I went for an interview. And basically the interview went around and I asked him, now, what do you want to see me about, whatever. So he wanted me to work with the guys in the outfield, with the fast bowlers who are generally on the boundary and so on. So we chatted about that and so forth. And he said to me, quite an astute man. I was really surprised in the interview. I made notes of how he handled me and whatever it is and so on. But after he said to me, okay, fine. So he said to me, so how will you do it? So I explained what I would do, So he said, well, okay, fine. I'd like to have you on as a consultant, And then he said to me, I stood up, and he said to me, look, I'll fine, and I'll give me the contract or whatever it is and so on. So then I said to him, but why am I only working with the outer ring, not the inner ring? So he said to me, and it's a true story, by the way, he said to me, well, we're the best in the world. So I said, yes, I know you're the best in the world, but I'll make you better. So he looks at me, but I smiled, you know what I mean? Really, really honest to you, I smiled and I said to him, look, when you contacted me to come for the interview, I went and got videos and I got some books on how you guys train and how this cricket game really gets played at your level. So I did some homework and I believe I could add some value to the inner ring as well as that. But as far as making Jonty, no, Jonty was already, I think, the best in the world. It was interesting. I was with him for a very, very short period. But yeah, no, he had absolute speed and quickness of the mark and good hands and things like that. So he was already there. Yeah. So.
Mike, very, very, very humble of you. And I can imagine what that experience was like. And you've gone on and you've said, yes, you're the best in the world, but you've got a way to make them better. And I love that sort of mentality. So I'm just going to quickly look through the chat here, Mike. See what we've got coming through here. I'm just struggling with my phone here. We'll see what we've got coming through here. Okay, so what I've picked something up here. It's come through in my inbox actually. Yeah. What is your favorite sporting memory?
My favorite sporting memory is making a senior team, playing soccer as a senior team in my first year when I was under 16, which is kind of unusual. I was tiny. I've always been tiny, but they put me in the first team when I was so young. That was something really, really special. And again, I could share with the people, athletes or whatever, or coach, that that really impacted on me because I couldn't understand why. They then explained to my parents that, look, if you think he's got talent, but that's why he's there, because my parents thought I was too young. And they said to me, look, we're only going to play in 3 games. I ended up there for 11 weeks. So that's kind of scary growing up because it's daunting. You're playing against big guys and they're taller than you and they intimidate you. They're always talking to you and saying things in your ear and things like that. So, as a young man, it's quite scary. And then, to me was that. But the second big thing, and probably ended up as the biggest thing in my life, was when I got taken over by the Kansas City Royals. Was when I went over there and they introduced me to their coaching staff as a coach. And they said to me, and them, that he's going to be on the field with you every single day. So here I was an outsider, being given the opportunity to work at a highest level with kind of almost no knowledge, which I thought, So there I was on the field with these guys. And the very, very first day, I was on the field there with them. I got a little dictaphone. It was like a doctor's dictaphone, smaller than your what do you call this thing again? Your phone. And I had it in my pocket, and I was watching this coach, you see. So I just said to him, excuse me, I can ask you a question. He looks at me and he said, yeah. I said, can I record you? And he said to me, what? So I said, no, if you feel unhappy, leave it. I won't. So I said to him, number, why are you asking me? So I said to him, look, I want to see what you're doing, but I want to hear what you're saying as well, but I can't do both at the same time because I'm making notes, so I can't see. So I said, I'd like to see what you're doing. I'll try and memorize it, and tonight I'll make the notes from the recording. And that changed my whole life because I was starting to observe and pay attention and getting as much information as I could. And I discovered the more information I was absorbing, it meant the more I can impart on the athletes I was working with. So those were 2 things that stick in my mind.
Wow, Mike, that your willingness to continue to learn is pretty phenomenal, and I'm not surprised you've gotten to where you've gotten today. So there's two questions, Mike. I've seen another one's just come through here, but I'm going to give you 30 seconds to answer the first one and then 1 minute to answer the last one because we're running out of time. So the one question I see, it's from Anesu Siniandoro. He says, how much does a player's attitude contribute to their development?
A lot, really, really a lot. And then again, I cannot expect to categorize and how can I say, what's the word I'm looking for, is criticize an athlete that's got an attitude. My job as a teacher is to change that attitude for their benefit. So it's not about me, it's to change them in the best way I know possible to encourage further growth.
Well done. 30 seconds on the dot, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So the last question, I don't allow anyone to leave without answering this question. I know we slightly over now, but the one question that we always have to ask, and it ties into the vision that we have as Africa Sports Consultancy, is there's a young boy or a young girl out there watching this who are keen to play sport. We don't know what sport it is, but what advice could you give them as from your position?
Well, the big thing is be humble, and it's tough because some people don't come from humble backgrounds, but be humble. And in the sense that if someone talks to you, open your ears and use your eyes, listen to them. And then go back, and if you don't understand, make a little note, little question, and then go back and ask that question. And that's the way I believe you can grow. You can't grow on your own. You need others to help you grow, and use other people to learn and grow from. That's the quickest way I can describe it.
Fantastic. That is a succinct answer that you've given there, Mike, and absolutely brilliant. I'm actually going to take that note, make it for myself. I'm going to use this recording for myself, just to improve myself. Fantastic answer, Mike. Thank you so much for joining in tonight, and definitely won't be the last we'll be seeing of you. And for everyone who's tuned in and watched tonight, thank you so much for tuning in. We always appreciate your support and always taking time out to come and watch. So again, that's fine there, Mike. As we always do, we want to sign out and say thanks for watching, and keep looking after yourself, keep looking after your loved ones, and keep sanitizing those hands, because as we know, we don't want to get to that point.
Okay.
So from myself,
I appreciate it. I really do.
Cheers, Mike. From myself and the baseball legend, Mike Randall, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. Okay, Gordy, all the best.